the problem. Is there a real problem when it comes to masculinity, assault on masculinity, war on men? What do you think?
I absolutely think there's a real problem, and it's not getting any better. It appears to be getting worse. It's something that a lot of guys struggle with today. There's a lot of weak, soft, docile men that could be better versions of themselves, but they aren't. And there's attack on those guys too, right? I mean, like you've seen probably attacks yourselves in the media against a lot of these men. Sometimes they're unfounded, sometimes they're founded, but it's difficult to distinguish, between the two, because we live in a world where it's believe all women now today, or believe anybody that accuses a man of being toxic or anything that they might do that's wrong until proven otherwise. And even if you do prove it otherwise, his name can be tarnished into perpetuity.
For the women watching, for the empathetic males to the mainstream position, I think mainstream is a fair qualification. That no, we have it backwards in this conversation. That there are aspects of masculinity that we have been allowed to dominate in society to the disadvantage of the overall, and this is a necessary correction, and that it's about creating more equity and fairness and less toxicity in terms of how we interact with each other. And that's what it is. And if we don't like it, that's because we need to change.
I'm still waiting for an example of that from that narrative, from that side of the story. I haven't seen a example or a pileup of examples where men are as described in that narrative, in that soundbite. And I don't see any situations where women can't do anything that men can do. In fact, it's kind of interesting because we live in a day and age today where men who are abysmal at competing in their sport, like swimming, for example, ranked 400 or so, will compete in a women's sport, identify as a female, and clean up and be number one. So it's interesting that that's overlooked or not pushed back as much as, the common average heterosexual male.
Yeah, I mean, look, without going down the road of identity per se, that example is an aberration. It certainly gets trafficked in a lot to make a point about the unfinished business of understanding identity and how we create equity in society. My big fear when it comes to what is happening with my kids or any of that stuff is not that my daughters won't be able to compete in sports anymore because the fields of play are going to be filled with males posing as female, but that is certainly trafficked in a lot. The big example of the contrary position for guys like the conversation that we're having, Richard, is Me Too, the toxic workplace that men for generations were able to say and do whatever they wanted to women, and the women had to comply or they would lose their jobs or any sense of advantage. That is what set all this off of rebalancing patriarchy and matriarchy.
Do we have examples of that?
Of toxic workplaces and men who've been able to get away with things? Yeah, I think I could make a fairly compelling case that workplaces I have worked in, even in the media up until recently, and I would actually argue until now, because I think a lot of Me Too has been underserved with window dressing and just chasing after media and bold-faced names. Obviously, I'm one of them. But did they create real systemic change, real equity, real avenues of people to ask for accountability? That I don't know, and nobody follows up on that coverage because the bold-faced names are enough. But again, the proof of it would be that the culture was that men were in power and could set the tone in the workplace. You disagree with that premise?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I've worked in a number of workplaces, and I've been self-employed for 20, 25 years now. But even back when I was involved in the corporate world, and I worked for some large corporations, I was telling you before we went on the air that I was involved in the credit collection industry and dealing with that sort of work. And there's some very large institutions here. And I never saw, women treated any differently than men. You get things in passing, there's comments made in passing from the time to time, often in jest, sometimes not in jest, but it's part of human nature. I don't think that it's a big issue, and I don't think that it should be tabled as a big issue in today's world. There's a lot bigger problems that we have out there than oh, he was mean to me or he looked at me the wrong way.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.